Okay, Melvin, you should do a roll call, please.
Okay, just for,
We're not doing the pledge or nothing.
No, all of us.
you mean, just so that anybody listening will know who's here?
Yes,
Okay. We have Susan Miller, Brian Shea, Chairman, Scott Bell, and Tim Wickman. And in the back, we have John Strait from Harrison, Brian Reef, and Tony Smith. Also with us are a couple of commissioners, Larry King and John Erickson.
Thank you, Melvin.
John Rosengren, engineer. Linda Swally, clerk. And Mitch is just sitting over there.
Is anyone on the phone?
I don't know. I got the phone on.
YouTube's on and we are the only ones on the conference line.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
So you ready to go?
Yep,
We're
okay.
still in,
We need a motion for approval of minutes from the May 9th, 2023 minutes for the CNR levy district meeting.
well, I don't know if you need, since the meeting is still a continuation, whether we,
Didn't you already approve that one?
Okay,
I guess, I don't know. The public hearing was
So
continued.
moved.
Go ahead.
let's do it
All
because it's on here and
I'll
let's
make
just
the
keep.
motion to.
Okay, we got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
20 seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to
I think-
continue the hearing on the report of the appraisers to acquire and or modify right-of-way for the CNR levy district and amend report.
John, is Mr. Wagner coming?
Mr. Wagner is not coming. He did say he would be on the phone.
I think somebody just rang in. I heard something, unless it was John's cell phone.
Your phone, John?
Oh.
So my understanding was Frank was gonna be on the call, Lyle McIntosh was gonna be on the phone. Jim Hudson was not gonna call in unless needed, because he didn't add anything last week. He said, I'll be available if needed, but
Wagner and who else was going to be?
Lyle McIntosh. Corey's not gonna make it because he was comfortable with where everything ended up last week, so. I guess we'll jump in.
Yep.
We went through last week the right of way, the CSR values and whatnot, so I'm not gonna touch on that unless there are more questions. I did sit down with Mr. Wagner after the meeting. Linda sat in with us, as well as Corey McIntosh, one of the landowners, and went through the list of Mr. Wagner's concerns, and we put together amendment number 2 to the report, which essentially summarized what we discussed. There's some items on here that I told him I was not gonna make a direct recommendation, that we needed to discuss it with the board and make a follow-on decision. But starting at the beginning of the page here, bullet point number 1, we're gonna add the note to the plans that there be no access or use of Wilson Lane for stockpiling of dirt or the construction of the levee. Just essentially, the contractor cannot use that unless they directly negotiate with Frank and the Kinzinger property. They will have no access through us for that lane.
We
So just
okay
getting
with that?
clarified. I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay.
The right-of-way acquired on the stockpile area for the Wagner property is valued the same as the average right-of-way through the Wagner property at 9,700. That is a typo, 9,735. Yes.
How much is it?
It should be 9,735.
The second page has the 9735.
Yes, because I transposed the 3 and the 7.
Okay.
I want to get that corrected on his letter.
Yes. And essentially the statement that is for a land value of 59 CSR. It doesn't change anything from what was said last week. It just gets it in writing that we're considering the 59 CSR value because he believed that statement was important. The route of the right-of-way on the parcel described as the east 605 feet of the southeast northwest lying south of the lake. I do have a map attached to the amendment today has been revised to run straight east. We're not recommending any reduction in compensation since that number will be fairly minuscule, but it will reduce the acres, and we are reducing his actual acres of right-of-way to 2.42 acres on that parcel. The map here shows that the area of interest was this odd-shaped triangular piece. The levee before was planned to go up in there, follow around through that corner. You guys see that? Instead of coming up into that 3.1 acres, we're just gonna cut straight across, which is how the original plan was at the hearing. That request, to straighten it out, was at Mr. Wagner's request. No reduction in compensation for him, but it does result in some additional acres and dollars for the Kinsinger property adjacent, and those are tallied beside. Those numbers will replace what are in the report currently for the Kinsinger property. Currently, the report has 2.81 acres on the Government Lot 2 southwest of the northeast, lying south of the lake. That will increase to 3.26 for a total of 36,577, and it adds 1.13 acres on the parcel just south of that for an additional 1459. Those hit the main things that I was willing to commit to privately with him in that meeting. The next page has several requests that, again, I am not making a firm recommendation one way or the other. I'm presenting what Mr. Wagner requested, and then we need to decide what we want to do. So number one, he's requesting additional compensation, increasing everything from $9,735 to $10,000 per acre on his property as severance for that 3.12 acres that the levee is now cutting south of. So because he would now have to cross that levee, he's asking for essentially $3,000 in compensation as severance to that property.
Do we comment now?
Yes, we can do that.
No, we'll set precedents. And I think it's
I agree with
wrong.
Brian.
I think we're gonna open a can of worms if we start doing that, and in any future levy, everybody's gonna go, you done it for them, do it for us.
Yep.
And we're gonna go to court over that, so I would say no.
Does he have to sign off on this?
No, he does not. The board will make their decision, make their appeal, and if he feels strongly about it, he can appeal it.
Appeal to the court?
Appeal to the court, and the court will decide. Honestly, I wouldn't be too concerned about that because the court's gonna say yes or no on those things fairly quickly and simply. It's not something that I would fight.
I would think that every other landowner would have a better court case on that, to come in and say, hey, you bumped his up, round mine up.
Which we already bumped up the stockpile area from an average of 13 CSR to 59, which is already a fairly sizable, generous gift, I would say.
Okay.
What's the rest of this board think?
I don't think we should change.
Yeah, I say, no.
Susan?
I agree with all of the reasons that have
Tim?
been stated.
He doesn't have a choice in this. If he doesn't like the choice we make, he can take it to court, and that's how it works.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
Do we want to do a motion on each of those as we go through and then we can just be done with them?
Okay. Somebody wanna make a motion?
So moved on the first one.
You need a motion to not do anything?
I think it'd be good to have the record for what the decision was on these questions.
I move to keep the compensation for right-of-way at $97.35 for the 3.12 acres.
Okay,
Is that right?
Yes.
correct.
$9,735 per acre.
Yes.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Let's go to the next one.
The next one is, he's requesting, that easements for every property be platted and recorded at the end of the project. This one, I think is reasonable. I think it's something that needs to be done because it came in invaluable, even though the Coulter did not get repaired. Having that actual legal record was massive in the battle in that project. So I would agree with this one that we should plat those, but just so everybody knows, that is paying us to do additional survey work on those levies before those are filed, so.
What's the dollar amount we're looking at there?
It really shouldn't be much in the scope of the project, probably 10 to 15,000 to do all of them.
Are we paying for easements right now?
You're paying to buy the easements. They are not a surveyed and platted easement. It is just simply the acres that are on the property and as shown on the maps. It's not a legal survey.
This could help future boards if we done it,
Yes.
because we all ain't gonna be here forever.
Well, this is what hurt us on the Coulter.
John might be.
You ain't going nowhere.
I don't know what John you're talking about.
That John stuck around.
What do you think?
I don't understand why it wouldn't be surveyed.
Yeah.
So in
Especially
drainage,
if
it
ownership is-
typically isn't. There's, up till now, so I probably worked on 125 different districts across the state. The Coulter levy is probably one of 3 that I've come across that actually had surveyed and platted easements. There's Coulter, there's one in Fort Dodge, or not, near Fort Dodge in Webster County, which was done 15 years ago, and then one that we did in Emmitsburg because it's a tile that runs through town. So it's not a common thing. Typically, it's just a record of acres kept in the auditor's office.
Who would be the owner? Harrison County?
No, the district would be the owner, CNR levy
Nice
district.
try though.
So what's the benefit, John, of having it?
The biggest thing is that clear record
It's record.
that we can go back to and say, there is an easement here, even though that record is clear as far as drainage law goes, it doesn't get attached to properties very often, to the actual, what am I thinking of, the abstract. And for drainage ditches, things like that, it actually gets missed a lot because it's not surveyed and platted.
But we're next to the Fish and Wildlife,
Yeah.
and look at the mess we're in.
I think you need that.
Hey, I think it'd be a good idea to
And
do
for
it
the tax
myself.
records too, to
Yeah.
deduct that amount, so I know exactly the acres that's getting
Yep.
Yep.
off the tax roll.
Having researched back to 1895, or the last 12 years, and finding that the Coulter levy, when that was rebuilt after the 1952 flood, the Corps of Engineers wanted legal easements on that right of way up through there. This is before the Fish and Wildlife Service got it. So every piece of property that the Fish and Wildlife has a legal easement on it, surveyed, plots, everything else, including the land that runs parallel to US Highway 30. US Highway 30 was acquired by easement, so they're gonna cut us off from the levee. Why don't they cut off the eastbound lane of Highway 30, but I guess they decided not to do that. But those legal easements are real important, and you go back to 1895, some of them are kind of hard to read. They're on microfilm and pretty faint, but it's there.
That wouldn't be assessed, would it?
What's that? The
ownership of that?
No, the district would provide the surveyed plat. Is that what you're asking?
No. Would a value be put on it?
That's what we're doing right now. So the survey would just make a record of these acres that are being presented. The value is being set now, and so there'd be no additional compensation. And actually, that was one of the statements I put in here, because we had that discussion last week with Mr. Wagner, is that if you go out and survey any quarter mile in the state of Iowa, none of them are gonna be exactly 1320. What we're drawing these maps on are the GIS sketches that the county has, which are close, they're not perfect, and so the acres are gonna vary when we go out and actually physically survey that ground. And so we do have a note in here that we're not gonna adjust compensation based on what those final acres are. Today is that day that we're buying it. The plat would just be a record, a legal record that can be reestablished in the future easily.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but when you look at all of the property that's in this levy district, if there's some repair that needs to be done, each one is levied or taxed to cover that cost.
Yes.
Does this play into the value?
Yes, well, it would come out of you're talking about the actual cost of it? Yes, it would go against the total budget for the project. So if the project were over budget, it would be assessed. But in this case, we have budget to cover what the board has approved to move forward with so far, the south half of that levy. So there would not be an assessment against the landowners for this.
No. Talking future.
Oh, will this land pay assessments in the future?
Yes.
No, none of the land that's in the right of way being purchased
That's what I wanted to
will
know.
pay assessments or property taxes. They'll come off the property tax rolls.
Okay. All right.
Looking for a motion to approve or disapprove?
So moved to approve.
To approve,
Yeah, Brian.
okay.
Brian?
Second?
Second. Oh, you got it?
Okay,
Go ahead.
Belt seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carried. Okay,
And
go on, John.
the next point is one that's more of a question mark. Mr. Wagner has requested that the district pay with those platted easements to update everybody who's had right-of-way purchased, update the abstracts for those lands. I don't know the actual cost for that. Was abstracting $1,500 per property, something like that.
So they want us to update their whole property?
Update the property abstract.
No.
Or the property that the levy's sitting
The
on.
property where the levy sits.
Aren't we kind of doing that with the last?
I would say that it probably does not update the abstract with the survey. The survey would be recorded, but it wouldn't necessarily make it into their abstract.
So the survey's gonna give the abstract of the information they need.
Yes.
So it'd be like $150 an abstract, isn't roughly to put that in there?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't done it since I got my house.
Wouldn't they file with the recorder, or is that how they
It'd
do
be
it?
filed with the recorder.
Hey, you guys, we're up against the Fish and Wildlife.
Yep, I think we should do that. It should not be that costly once the survey's the expensive part, so.
So you'd just be accepting out the,
The survey.
the actual levy area from everyone's parcel.
Essentially, yes. Yeah,
Just the parcel affected.
Yeah, and it just goes in annotation in
Just
the
the
abstract.
We're not updating their whole farm.
Yeah.
correct.
If you sell that property, they have to update the abstract anyway.
Yeah.
You know, if you sell a piece of property, before you can do that, they gotta have a legal abstract, so, I mean, it's duplication.
Not in Potawatomi County, actually. You know, all you have to do is get a title report done and title insurance on it.
Oh, really?
You guys do title insurance here?
Yep.
Well.
We're one of the exceptions, actually.
Okay.
It depends on the lender.
Yeah.
The lender requires certain title insurance, some do abstracts, so.
I just think for future boards, we ought to do everything possible. Because we're sitting here and we're all in this mess. And a little bit of money,
I mean,
I hate to nickel and dime it, but a little bit of money could certainly save future boards a lot of headaches.
Can we afford it?
How many abstracts are we talking about?
Yes, by better.
How many landowners?
Abstracts are pricey.
Tony, did I hear you say you made a motion?
I mean, what if they don't have
Well, I
it?
know, I took 2 acres off of mine, and it was $150 to update my abstract, so I mean, it wasn't that big a deal.
Depends
Oh,
on how
How
updated
you
their
set up, though.
abstract is, yeah.
Yeah.
Say, what
If they don't have an abstract,
Yeah.
you had to make a whole brand new one, that's very expensive, yeah.
I wouldn't think you need a new abstract, though, there should be, well, you guys have title insurance over here, though.
That's right, so that's what I'm saying, if you, sorry, I'm part of this meeting, I guess, but, yeah, if they don't have one right now and you're saying you're gonna update it, I mean, anyone that doesn't have one's gonna ask for a brand new updated abstract.
Right.
So, I mean, there's, might be a can of worms here, just speaking out loud.
I count 10 landowners.
Pardon?
I count 10 landowners that we'd have to,
So 1,500, maybe 2,000.
Yeah, I would say motion should be for those who have abstracts. So we don't create new ones for people who have title insurance and such. Would that cover that? I'm kind of looking at you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it should be at their request
Yeah, there you go.
or something like that. If you guys wanna do that.
Okay, I like that.
and we can just send out a letter and let them know. Frank's obviously already requesting it, so we know we have one.
Because some of these are in land,
Already have an abstract.
Yeah.
some of these are in land trusts also.
Yeah, I don't know the exact ownership of them, but there's LLCs, there's family trusts, there's a trust there. Others are owned and named.
Okay,
So can I say that they, we'll pay for the updating of property abstracts, for those who have abstracts and request an update? That sound about right? Did you get that right, Melvin?
is that your motion, Tony?
That's my motion,
That's a motion.
yeah. So
We
we'll.
need a second? Nobody wants to step forward?
I'll second it, but we'll need to document carefully who requested and when the
Yes.
request went out and
Yep.
who responded and.
I would think that'd come to,
I think I'd have it come to
Yeah.
Linda, cause she can date stamp it.
yes.
But I can send out the letter and say, if you'd like to have it, please respond to Linda. I mean, maybe we can put a form in there, a simple form that says,
And give
yes,
them a-
I'd like it updated, or,
And give them a deadline to request it by.
Yes.
Right, right.
I like that.
Brian's point, making it easier for the future boards
Oh my
to know
God,
what's going on.
We wouldn't be in this mess if people would have done the right thing
Right,
years
right.
ago. Okay, got a motion and a second.
Did we get a second?
Miller?
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Those opposed, same.
And that should be just for the affected property,
Motion carried.
okay?
Yeah.
Brian, you were a no?
Correct.
Just wanna make sure we get minutes right.
Let's try to be difficult.
There's always one, isn't there?
John?
all right, final point. Mr. Wagner brought up the culvert on his west line at the last meeting, or the northwest corner of his property. I haven't looked at the plans in detail for a while. It's right here in the corner of section 2, coming off the Fish and Wildlife property.
Right that corner there.
We did look at the plans. There was actually a second one as well. There's another waterway farther south. At our meeting last Tuesday, Mr. Wagner said, well, the culvert is a weak spot. I don't disagree with them. They can be a weak spot if they're not properly constructed. That's part of my job, is to try to make sure that they are properly constructed. I don't see them as a major risk, but he did request if he could go, or if he could receive permission from Tom Cox, from the refuge, that they don't require that drainage to continue through, that we could eliminate those. So I received a call on Thursday, the 11th, the date of the letter, stating that he had spoken with Tom Cox, and his understanding was Tom was okay with eliminating those culverts, eliminating the drainage through the levee from west to east, if the Fish and Wildlife Service could have access across that wet spot on the top of the levee.
So we don't need drainage if they can drive on it. But
Yes,
if they can't drive on it, then that has to be there.
correct. Now, I will point out, I did hear, from Corey McIntosh yesterday that, and I have not spoken to Tom Cox, I need to do that, I have not done that yet. But Corey had heard from Tom Cox that he was okay if they be removed, but he would actually rather keep them and actually just have it extended onto Fish and Wildlife property, and they can build a low crossing over that on their own property, maintain that drainage, and then if they wanna have that wet area, there's at least a way to control it. Because right now, if we don't put that in, we really don't have a sense of how much water can pool there. It's not a large area, but if you get a 10-inch rain, you can end up with 3 feet of water that sits there with nowhere to go. From my perspective as an engineer, I would rather have the outlet and not need it than to